Welcome to the third branch of the Mabinogi. After the 7 men we spoke of above, that's a weird way to start a chapter, had buried Bendigeidfran's head on Gwynfryn in London, with its face towards France, Manawydan looked at the town of London and at his companions, and heaved a great sigh. An immense sorrow and longing came over him. "Alas, Almighty God, woe is me," he said. "I am the only one who has no place to go tonight." "Lord," said Pryderi, "do not be so sad. Your cousin Caswallon is king over the island of the mighty, and although he has done you wrong," he said, "you have never claimed land or territory. You are one of the 3 undemanding chieftains." "Well," he said. "Hey, Phil. Although that man may be my cousin, I am extremely sad to see anyone take the place of Bendigeidfran, my brother, and I could not be happy under the same roof as him." "Will you take any other advice?" said Pryderi. "I need it," he said. "What advice is that?" "The 7 cantrevs of Dyfed were left to me," said Pryderi, "and Rhiannon, my mother, lives there. I shall give her to you, together with the authority over those 7 cantrevs. Although it may be the only realm you have, there are no better 7 cantrevs." For those who don't know, a cantrev is a 100 town, which means that it's a collection of towns together. So trev means town and cant means 100. But in English, you wouldn't call it 100 town; you just call it 100. But yeah, it's a large collection of villages, all very close together, to suggest a large settlement, really. Yeah. So we've got the 700s, but I'll call it cantrevs because that's the word that is the correct word. Dyfed, for those who weren't watching previously, Dyfed was the county and/or kingdom, depending on what period of history we're talking about, that represents the area we now call Pembrokeshire, Ceredigion, Carmarthenshire, bits of Swansea around that area. But Dyfed could also represent just Pembrokeshire. Deheubarth covers that larger area as well. But yeah, so the 7 cantrevs of Dyfed are in this period around Cardigan area in Wales, in my opinion, and slightly south of that. And again, people will correct me. However, that's like what I know at this point in time. So yeah, if you want to look that up, feel free to look that up. Right. So where were we? This is. I shall give her to you, together with the authority over those 7 cantrevs. Although it may be the only realm you have, there are no better 7 cantrevs. My wife is Cigfa, daughter of Gwyn Gloyw, he said, and although the realm will be mine in name, let the benefits be yours and Rhiannon's. And if you ever wanted a realm of your own, perhaps you could take that one. "I have never wanted one, Lord," he said, "but may God repay you your friendship. The best friendship I can give shall be yours, if you want it." "I do, friend," he said. "May God repay you, and I shall go with you to visit Rhiannon and the realm." "You are doing the right thing," he said. "I am sure that you have never heard a woman converse better than Rhiannon. When she was in her prime, there was no woman more beautiful, and even now you will not be disappointed with her looks." They set off. Although the road was long, they came at last to Dyfed. A feast had been prepared for them, ready for their arrival at Arberth, arranged by Rhiannon and Cigfa. Then Manawydan and Rhiannon sat together and began to converse, and as a result of that conversation his head and heart grew tender towards her, and he was delighted that he had never seen a woman who was fairer or more beautiful than her. "Pryderi," he said, "I will agree to your proposal." "What was that?" said Rhiannon. "My lady," said Pryderi, "I have given you as a wife to Manawydan son of Llyr." I will agree to that gladly, said Rhiannon. Bit cavalier, if you ask me. Suddenly just going, yeah, screw it, why not? But, to each their own. I'm glad too, said Mabinogion. Hey Rodri, hey Anne, hey Luca, hey Phil. How's it going? I'm glad too, said Mabinogion, and may God repay the man who gives me such firm friendship. Before that feast finished, he slept with her. Ooh. Continue with what is left of the feast, said Pryderi, and I will go to England to pay homage to Caswallon, son of Beli. Lord, said Rhiannon, Caswallon is in Kent, so you can continue with the feast and wait until he is closer. Then we will wait for him, said Pryderi. And they finished the feast and began to make a circuit of Dyfed, where they hunted and enjoyed themselves. As they wandered through the land, they had never seen a place more pleasant to live in, nor better hunting ground, nor land more abundant in honey and fish. And during that time a friendship developed between the four of them, so that not one, wished to be without the other, either day or night. In the meantime, Pryderi went to pay homage to Caswallon, or Caswallon, if it's an English name. I'm not sure at this point, but I'm pronouncing the names like they're Welsh, because this is the Mabinogion. So, moving on. Caswallon in Oxford, where he was given a great welcome and was thanked for paying homage. And for those who don't know, it's a double L, Caswallon. When he returned, Pryderi and Mabinogion feasted and relaxed. They began a feast at Arberth, for it was one of the chief courts, and every celebration originated from there. That night, after the first sitting, while the servants were eating, they got up and went out, and the four of them then proceeded to Gorsedd Arberth. Gorsedd is like a throne or a chair. It's like in Eisteddfods, when you have the Gorsedd, lots of druids turn up, or people who wear druid outfits, who are referred to as druids, turn up. Take that as you will, but it's meant to be a great gathering and very culturally important. They proceeded to Gorsedd Arberth, and many people with them. As they were sitting, they heard a tumultuous noise, and with the intensity of that noise, there fell a blanket of mist, so they could not see each other. And after the mist, everywhere became bright. When they looked to where they had once seen the flocks and herds and dwelling places, they could now see nothing at all, neither building nor beast, neither smoke nor fire, neither man nor dwelling place, only the court buildings empty, desolate, uninhabited, without people, without animals in them. Their own companions had disappeared, with nothing known of their whereabouts. Only the four of them remained. Dear Lord God, said Mabinogion, where is the court retinue and our company, apart from us? Let us go and look. They came to the hall. There was no one. They went to the chamber and sleeping quarters. They could see no one. In the mead hall and kitchen, there was nothing but desolation. The four of them continued with the feast, and then they hunted and enjoyed themselves. Each one of them began to wander through the land and realm to see whether they could find either a building or dwelling place, but nothing at all did they see. Only wild animals. When they had finished their feast and provisions, they began to live on meat they hunted, and on fish and swarms of wild bees. And so they spent a year happily, and the second. But at last they grew tired. God knows, said Mabinogion, we cannot live like this. Let us go to England and seek a craft by which we make our living. They set off for England and came to Hereford, or as it is called in Welsh, Henffordd, which means old road or old way, and took up saddle making. Mabinogion began to shape pommels and colour them with blue enamel in a way that he had seen done by Llasar Llys Gungwyd. And when he prepared blue enamel as the other man had done, and he prepared it. Sorry, and because of that, it is still called Llasar's an animal, because Llasar Llaesgwngwyd made it. As long as that work could be had from Mabinogion, neither pommels nor saddles were purchased from any other saddler throughout all Hereford. All the saddlers realized that they were losing their profits, and that nothing was being bought from them unless it could not be supplied by Mabinogion. So they got together and agreed to kill him and his companion. But in the meantime, the two of them received a warning and discussed whether they should leave the town. Between me and God, said Pryderi, my advice is not to leave the town, but rather to kill these churls. No, said Mabinogion. If we were to fight them, we would get a bad reputation and would be imprisoned. It would be better for us to go to another town and earn our living there. Then the four of them went to another city. What craft shall we take on? Said Pryderi. We will make shields, said Mabinogion. Do you know anything about that? Said Pryderi. We will attempt it, he said. They began making shields, shaping them after the design of good shields that they had seen, and colouring them as they had coloured their saddles. Their work flourished, so that no shield was being bought throughout the town unless it was not supplied by them. They worked quickly and made vast quantities, and so they continued until the fellow townsmen became angry with them and agreed to try and kill them. But they received a warning, and heard that the men were intent on putting them to death. Pryderi, said Mabinogion, these men want to kill us. We will not take that from these churls. Let us go from them and kill them. No, he replied, because Rathlon would get to hear of it, and his men and we would be ruined. We will go to another town. They came to another town. What craft shall we take up? Said Mabinogion. Whatever craft you want of those we know, said Pryderi. Not so, he said. We will take up shoemaking. Shoemakers will not have the heart to fight us or forbid us. I know nothing about that craft, said Pryderi. But I do, said Mabinogion, and I will teach you how to stitch, and we will not bother to tan the leather, but buy it already prepared and work with that. Then he began to buy the finest Cordovan leather he could get in town, and bought no other leather except leather for the soles. He began to make friends with the best goldsmiths in town, and had buckles made with the shoes, and had them gilded, and watched the process himself until he knew how to do it. And because of that, he was called one of the 3 golden shoemakers. As long as a shoe or a boot could be supplied by him, nothing was bought from any shoemaker throughout town. The shoemakers realized they were losing their profits, for as Mabinogion cut out the leather, Pryderi stitched it. The shoemakers came and took counsel, and they agreed to kill them. Pryderi, said Mabinogion, the men want to kill us. Why should we take that from these thieving churls, rather than kill them all, said Pryderi. No, said Mabinogion, we will not fight them, nor we will stay in England any longer. We will set off and go and visit Dyfed. Although the road was long, they came at last to Dyfed, and made for Arberth, where they kindled fire and began to support themselves by hunting, and spent a month like this. They gathered their hounds about them and hunted, and spent a year there in this way. One morning, Pryderi and Mabinogion get up to hunt. They get their dogs ready and leave the court. Hey, Alan. Where was I? And leave the court. Where was that line? There we go. Some of the dogs run ahead of them. Dogs run ahead of them and approach a small thicket that is nearby. But as soon as they enter the thicket, they come out again quickly, their hair standing on end with fear, and return to the men. Let us go closer to the thicket and see what is inside, said Pryderi. They approached the thicket. As they approached, a gleaming white wild boar rose from it. Encouraged by the men, these dogs charged at him. The boar then left the thicket and retreated a little way from the men. And until the men closed in on him, he would keep the dogs at bay without retreating. But when the men closed in, he would retreat again and break away. They followed the boar until they saw a huge towering fort, newly built, in a place where they had never been before, see neither stone or building. The boar was heading quickly for the fort, with the dogs after him. When the boar and the dogs had gone into the fort, the men marveled at seeing the fort in a place where they had never before seen any building at all. From the top of the mound they looked and listened for the dogs. Although they waited a long time, they did not hear the sound of a single dog, nor anything at all about them. "Lord," said Pryderi, "I will go to the fort and seek news of the dogs." "God knows," replied Manawydan. "It is not a good idea for you to go into the fort. We have never seen it before. If you take my advice, you will not enter. For whoever cast a spell on the land has caused the fort to appear." "God knows," said Pryderi, "I will not abandon my dogs." In spite of the advice he received from Manawydan, Pryderi approached the fort. When he entered, neither man nor beast, nor boar nor dogs, neither house nor dwelling place could he see in the fort. But he could see in the middle of the floor, as it were, a well with marble work around it. At the edge of the well there was a golden bowl fastened to 4 chains over a marble slab, and the chains reached up to the sky, and he could see no end to them. He was enraptured by the beauty of the gold and the fine workmanship of the bowl, and he went to the bowl and grabbed it. But as soon as he grabs the bowl, his hands stick to it, and his feet stick to the slabs on which he is standing, and the power of speech is taken from him, so that he could not utter a single word. And there he stood. Manawydan waited for him almost all evening. Late in the afternoon, when he was certain that he could get no news about Pryderi or the dogs, he returned to the court. When he entered, Rhiannon looked at him. "Where is your companion and your dogs?" she said. "This is what has happened," he said, and told her the whole story. "God knows," said Rhiannon, "you have been a poor companion, and you have lost a good friend." And with those words out she went, going in the direction he had told her Pryderi and the fort could be found. She found the gate of the fort open. It was ajar, and in she came. As soon as she entered, she discovered Pryderi gripping the bowl, and she went up to him. "My lord," she said, "what are you doing here?" Then she too grabbed the bowl, and as soon as she grabbed it, her hands too stick to the bowl and her feet to the slab, so that she too could not utter a single word. Then as soon as it was night, there was a tumultuous noise above them, a blanket of mist, and then the fort disappeared, and so did they. When Kigva, daughter of Gwyn Gloyw, wife of Pryderi, saw that she and Manawydan were alone in the court, she lamented that she did not care whether she lived or died. Manawydan saw this. "God knows," he said, "you are mistaken if you are lamenting because you are afraid of me. I give you God as my guarantor, that you will never find a truer friend than me, for as long as God wishes it so. I swear to God, even if I were in the prime of youth, I would be true to Pryderi, and for your sake too, I will be true, and so have no fear at all," he said. "I swear to God," he said. "You shall have the friendship that you want from me as far as I am able, for as long as God wants us to be in this misery and sorrow." "May God repay you." "I thought as much," said Kigva. Then the maiden cheered up and took courage because of that. "Well, my friend," said Manawydan, "there is no point our staying here. We have lost our dogs and we cannot support ourselves. Let us go to England. It will be easier for us to support ourselves there." "Gladly, lord," she said. "Let's do that." Together they journeyed to England. "Lord," she said, "what craft will you choose? Choose one that is clean." "I will choose nothing but shoemaking, as I did before," he said. "Lord," she said, "that craft, as regards its cleanliness, is not suitable for a man of your skills and status." "Well, that's the one I will follow," he said. He set about his craft and shaped his work from the fairest Cordovan leather he could get in town. As they had done in the other place, he began to fit shoes with golden buckles until the work of all the shoemakers in town was worthless and inferior compared to his, and as long as a shoe or boot could be supplied to him, nothing was bought from anyone else. And so he spent a year there until shoemakers became envious and jealous of him, and until warnings reached him saying that the shoemakers had decided to kill him. "Lord," said Kigva, "why should we put up with this from the churls?" They're back again. We will not, he said, but we will return to David. They set out for David. There's got a lot of going back to David after being threatened. They set out for David. When Mabinogion set off, he took with him a load of wheat and made for Ardberth and settled there. Nothing gave him more pleasure than seeing Ardberth and the land where he had been hunting, he and Pryderi and Rhiannon with them. He began to get used to catching fish and wild animals in their lairs. After that he began to till the soil, and he sowed a small field, and a second, and a third. And indeed the wheat sprang up, the wheat sprang up the best in the world, his 3 fields flourishing alike, so no one had seen wheat finer than that. The seasons of the year passed by, harvest time arrived, and he went to look at one of his fields. It was ripe. I will reap this tomorrow, he said. He returned that night to Ardberth. In the grey dawn the next day he comes intending to reap the field. When he arrives, there are only bare stalks, each one having been broken off where the ear comes out of the stalk, and the ears have all been carried away, and the stalks left there bare. He is greatly surprised at that, and goes to look at another field. It is ripe. God only knows, he said, I will reap this one tomorrow. The next day he comes with the intention of reaping the field. When he arrives, there is nothing but bare stalks. O Lord God, he said, who is trying to destroy me completely? I know this much. Whoever began this destruction is now bringing it to an end, and has destroyed the land along with me. He comes to look at the third field, and when he arrives no one has seen finer wheat, and all of it is ripe. Shame on me, he said, if I do not keep watch tonight. Whoever carried off the other wheat will come to take this, and I will find out who it is. He took his weapons and began to keep watch over the field. He told Kikva everything. Well, she said, what have you in mind? I will keep watch over the field tonight, he said. I went to keep watch over the field. While he went to keep watch over the field, while he was doing so, towards midnight, he heard the loudest noise in the world. He looked. There was a huge army of mice. They could not be counted or measured. The next thing he knew, the mice were making for the field, and each one was climbing up a stalk, bending it down, breaking the ear, and making off with the ears, and leaving the stalks behind. And as far as he knew, there was not a single stalk there without a mouse on it, and they ran away carrying the ears with them. Then, enraged and angered, he charged in amongst the mice. He could no more keep his eye on one of them than on the gnats or the birds in the air. But he could see that one was very fat and likely to be able to move quickly. He went after that one and caught it, and put it in his glove, and tied the mouth of the glove with a string, and kept hold of it and made for the court. Mabinogion came to the chamber where Kikva was, and he lit the fire and hung a glove by a string on a peg. What do you have there, Lord? Said Kikva. A thief that I caught stealing from me, he replied. What sort of thief, Lord? Could you put it in a glove? She said, I'll tell you everything, he said, and he told her how his fields had been destroyed and laid waste, and how the mice had come to the last field before his very eyes. And one of them was very fat, and I caught it, and inside the glove, and I intend to hang it tomorrow. But my confession to God, had I caught them all, I would hang them. Lord, she said, I'm not surprised, but yet it's not proper for a man of your status and rank to hang that sort of creature. If you were to do the right thing, you would not bother with the creature, but let it go. Shame on me, he said. If I would not have hanged them all, if I would not have hanged them all had I caught them, but what I have caught I will hang. That's a tongue twister for me right there. Well, Lord, she said, there is no reason why I should help this creature, except to prevent you from being disgraced. So do as you will, Lord. Ooh, excuse me. If I knew of any reason in the world why you should help the creature, I would take your advice. But since I do not, my lady, I intend to destroy it. Then do so gladly, she said. Then he made for Gorsedd Ardberth, taking the mouse with him, and he pushed 2 forks into the highest point of the mound. As he was doing this, he could see a cleric coming towards him, dressed in poor, threadbare old clothes. And it was 7 years since he had seen either man or beast, except for the 4 people who had been together until the 2 of them had disappeared. "Lord," said the cleric, "good day to you." "May God prosper you and welcome," said Mabinogion. "Where do you come from, cleric?" he said. "I come, Lord, from England, where I have been singing." "And why do you ask, Lord?" he said. "Because for the last 7 years I have not seen a single person here apart from 4 exiled people and now yourself." "Well, Lord," he said, "I myself am just passing through on the way to my own country." "But what sort of work are you engaged in, Lord?" "Hanging a thief I caught stealing from me," he said. "What sort of thief, Lord?" he said. "I can see a creature in your hand that looks like a mouse. It's not fitting for a man of your status to handle such a creature. Let it go." "I will not, between me and God," he said. "I caught it stealing, and I am punishing it in accordance with the law, which is to hang it." "Lord," he said, "rather than see a man of your status involved in such work, I will give you the £1 I received as a charity to let that creature go. Between me and God, I will never sell it nor let it go." "As you wish, Lord," he said. "If it were not improper to see a man of your status touching such a creature, it would not worry me." And off went the cleric. As Mabinogion was placing the cross-beam on the forks, he saw a priest approaching on a well-equipped horse. "Lord, good day to you," he said. "May God prosper you," said Mabinogion, "and I ask for your blessing." "God's blessing upon you. And what sort of work, Lord, are you engaged in?" "I am hanging a thief I caught stealing from me," he said. "What sort of thief, Lord?" he said. "A creature in the shape of a mouse," he said, "and it stole from me, and I am putting it to death in the way one should a thief." "Lord, rather than see you handle that creature, I will buy it from you. Let it go." "By my confession to God, I will neither sell it nor let it go." "The truth is, Lord, it is worth nothing. But rather than see you defile yourself with that creature, I will give you £3 to let it go." "Between me and God," he said, "I want no payment except what it deserves, hanging." "Very well, Lord, do as you please." Off went the priest. Mabinogion tied the string around the mouse's neck. As he was hoisted up, he could see the bishop's entourage and his baggage and his retinue, and the bishop himself approaching, so Mabinogion postponed his work. "Lord Bishop," he said, "your blessing." "May God give you his blessing," he said. "What sort of work are you engaged in?" "I am hanging a thief I caught stealing from me," he said. "Isn't that a mouse I see in your hand?" he said. "It is," he said, "and it stole from me." "Well," said the bishop, "since I have arrived just when you were about to destroy that creature, I will buy it from you, and I will give you £7 for it. And rather than see a man of your status destroying such a worthless creature, let it go, and you shall have the money." "I will not let it go, between me and God," he said. Since you will not let it go for that, I will give you £24 in ready money to let it go." "By my confession to God," he said, "I will not let it go for as much again." "Since you will not release the creature for that," he said, "I will give you every horse you can see in this plain, and the 7 loads of baggage that are on the 7 horses." "No, between me and God," he said. "Since you do not want that, name your price." "I will," he said, "the release of Rhiannon and Pryderi." "You shall have that." "That's enough between me and God." "What else do you want?" "Remove the magic and enchantment from the 7 cantrips of Davies." "You shall have that too. Now let the mouse go." "I will not, between me and God," he said. "I want to know who the mouse is." "She is my wife, and if she were not, I would not free her." "How did she come to me?" "Stealing," he said. "I am Sioned, son of Kilcoed, and it is I who placed the enchantment on the 7 cantrips of Davies, and I did so to avenge Gwawl, son of Cled, out of friendship for him, and I took revenge on Pryderi because Pwyll Pen Anofin played Badger in the bag with Gwawl, son of Cled, and he did that unwisely in the court of Hyfaidd Hen." For those who've missed part 1 and 2, I would advise you to watch part 1 and 2, where it shows that the first branch of the Mabinogi, the second branch of the Mabinogi. Some of these characters are recurring, and Badger in the Bag is, I believe, part of the second branch of the Mabinogi. It was an act of embarrassment for a lord who had tricked him, and he therefore tricked him back. Not going to go into that too much more, because this is a revenge plot upon a revenge plot upon a revenge plot, but nobody's died, so moving on. And having heard that you were living in the land, my retinue came to me and asked me to turn them into mice, so that they could destroy your corn. The first night they came alone, and they came the second night too, and destroyed the 2 fields. But the third night my wife and the ladies of the court came to me and asked me to transform them too, and I did that. My wife was pregnant, and had she not been pregnant, you would not have caught her. But since she was, and you did, I will give you Pryderi and Rhiannon, and I will remove the magic and enchantment from Dyfed. I have told you who she is. Now let her go. I will not let her go between me and God, he said. What else do you want? He said. This is what I want, he said, that there will never be any spell on the 7 cantrips of Dyfed, and that none will ever be cast. You shall have that, he said. Now let her go. I will not let her go between me and God, he said. What else do you want? He said. This is what I want, he said, that no vengeance will ever be taken on Pryderi and Rhiannon, nor on me because of this. You shall have all of that, and God only knows you have struck a good bargain, he said. Had you not done so, he said, all of the trouble you would have fallen on you and your head. Yes, said Mabinogi. That is why I make it a condition. And now set my wife free. I will not set her free between me and God until I see Pryderi and Rhiannon free with me. Look, here they come, he said. And then Pryderi and Rhiannon appeared, and he got up to meet them and welcomed them, and they sat down together. Sir, set my wife free now, for you have everything you asked for. I will do so gladly, he said, and she was released, and he struck her with a magic wand and changed her back into the fairest young woman that anyone had seen. Look around you at the land, he said, and you will see all the houses and dwelling places, so they were at their best. Then Mabinogi got up and looked around, and when he looked he could see all the land inhabited and complete, with all its herds and its houses. In what sort of captivity were Pryderi and Rhiannon? Said Mabinogi. Pryderi had the gate hammers of my court around his neck, while around hers Rhiannon had the collars of the asses after they had been hauling hay, and that was their imprisonment. Because of that imprisonment, this story was called the Mabinogi of the collar and the hammer. And so ends this branch of the Mabinogi. And on another occasion, I will read the 4th branch of the Mabinogi. There are 4 branches of the Mabinogi, but there are more stories afterwards, so I will keep reading, but that explains why there are only 4 in this series of me reading the book. Yeah, that was quite nice. There was a lot of pattern to that. I think I preferred the first one's story. The second one was definitely more grim, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. I don't know how long that was. How long was that? Let's have a look. It was. That's the second branch. It was about 12 pages, which isn't a lot, to be honest, considering the other 2 stories were probably about 16 each. I'm not going to read the 4th Mabinogi right now, but I will read it again, and I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for now. Bye.